here we are. We made the announcement earlier today. It's been pretty positive. Haven't seen anything too crazy come in there.
No?
Somebody did make a comment on the, what was it? I don't know, one of the menu items. It was weird what it was like. You need to, don't lose this, but improve it. It was like, it was a shepherd's pie. It was like,
oh, really?
yeah, it was like, we love the shepherd's pie. Do not take that off the menu, but improve it. It was like, okay,
all right.
what do you do with that one?
Give me a little more information.
Not much on
We
there.
can make that work.
Oh, Bailey's in there. He's got one question. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of open to anybody. If you've got questions about kind of the joint venture here, just feel free to reach in. That sounded weird. Feel free to just comment on here, and Jim and I will try to answer them. The point of this is just to obviously be transparent in the acquisition, and try to do our best to answer any questions that you might have about the future of coaches, the future of Saddleback, the future of both of them together, where each other stands. It's meant to just be out there and transparent for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten quite a few messages privately, which I appreciate. Lots of congratulations, but also, some fair questions. We had some people that had some parties already booked with us, and are they still going to be available? Is everything gonna, no, absolutely. Nothing's going to change as far as that goes. I had questions about our loyalty program, and
I think that's going to be the big benefit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so the best of our knowledge, all of that will sync together. So if you're a Saddleback rewards points person, you'll be able to use those points at coaches, and same thing if you're a coach's rewards member. At some point, the gift cards are going to merge together. It won't happen until everything's finalized. But when that happens, it's also a nice way of saying, hey, if we want to buy that gift for somebody special, you can use those gift cards at Slice by Saddleback Barbecue, and then obviously at coaches. So it's kind of three gift cards in one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some menu questions too, like you said, right away, nothing's going to change. It's, if you've been a customer of coaches now for any amount of time, you realize that our menu has been kind of stagnant, and that's one of the things that I take a lot of responsibility for. It's been time for a change for a while, and it doesn't mean that we're going to go in and chop it all up and get rid of everything and load it up with a bunch of things that don't make sense. But we are going to make it. We're going to streamline it right away. Nothing crazy. I've got some ideas that we've been working on for months, and we've run some features and gone over well. So we'll make those changes. But as far as throwing coach's menu out the door, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see that. I don't think anybody on staff. I don't think anybody on my staff. I don't think you. There's a lot of lifting when you do a complete menu. Coach Spoken Grill. Jack. Yes, Jack. I sleep. I probably sleep more than I should sleep, to be honest with you.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, well, that's part of the whole thing. That I think that probably is the number one question that's going to come. It's like, what Saddleback food's coming over? How's that going to work? And I think you and I have spent a ton of time kind of discussing on how that would look, what would happen, and I think we're probably both in agreement. Let's just let the whole thing kind of take its course, see what customer feedback is, what their response is. If we can put it out there in little increments and see what the response is, and go from there. But I don't think it's in anybody's best interest to just go one day it's this and one day it's that. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No. And honestly, when I get a lot of questions too, like how did this all come about? And I think that's an important one to cover. I approached you. Matt didn't come sneaking around, and we've known each other for a long time, since the start of Saddleback.
Wait, people say sneak around?
I said it. I mean, I've watched you. But no, I approached you, and it was something, when we took over 6 years ago, my life was a lot different than it is now.
Yep.
And, there was different support, and there's always been the passion and the love and for coaches and the potential that we see there, but at the point where I'm at, I can only do so much as one person.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And like this, when we first started initially talking about this, I was really more looking at it as the opportunity to take on, to bring you kind of on, because we discussed that, I think, even before the coach's opportunity on your end. We were talking about, hey, what would this look like? Is there opportunity to bring you on? And I just think at that point, Saddleback wasn't, I don't want to say big enough, but we just probably weren't in need of somebody with your skill set. But now that we've evolved to where we are, it almost makes more sense to do it this way than if it was just another restaurant where we didn't know exactly what we were going to get into. So I definitely think that played into. We got some questions going here?
Yeah. So I've seen this one twice, and it's probably from the same person. Will you bring steak back?
Well, what steak did you run?
We used to have it was a sirloin. Actually, it was like a sizzler steak, the traditional.
Like the ball tip?
Yeah, ball tip steaks. Thank you. And we used to run it, but quite honestly, what happened with that and how it kind of transformed. So, being a chef by trade in my background, I want to be able to always do things right. And the steak that we were serving, prices kind of skyrocketed, and we're all still seeing that. It hasn't come back down. To be able to put a steak on the menu that fit our price point, right? So I can't put a $40 steak on a coach's menu. It just doesn't fit. It's not a customer base. So, one, the pricing on it was getting to be out of this world. And two, a ball tip is very inconsistent in quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fillet. You're not going to always get a great cut. So when we looked at it, it was like, all right, to be able to serve a steak at our price point, I can't buy a great quality cut.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah.
So why am I going to put something on the menu that I can't execute well, and that I have to look that customer in the eye and go, yeah, this is a great steak, because I can't guarantee that.
Sure.
So that was kind of the main catalyst behind it, and steak prices haven't gone anywhere. So I look at it and I go, okay, so what's the perceived value of coming to Coach's for a steak? If you see it on the menu, if you've never been to Coach's before and you're maybe passing from Grand Rapids to Detroit and you pull off the highway, you go, hey, let's stop here. If you see a steak on the menu, are you going to order it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the place that you look at and go, man, I bet you the steak is great here? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it's trying to stay in our lane and keep menu items on our menu that we know that we can do well and execute well. I'm saying we always do it.
Sure.
But that's why it's not on there.
But I do think that's a good example of like one of the benefits that could come out of this. It's like, we've talked about doing smoked prime rib where, we're able to smoke it on our end, bring it to Coaches where you guys can actually, sell and serve it and kind of have a different swing on it. Like we'll have those advantages now. And I think that that's a good example of a product that in the Saddleback world, we're not able to pull off. When we try to do it, we'll do it and it'll get good response. But the reality of it is we're not full service. We don't have a draft list or any of the other things that I would think about that would enhance that steak value. We don't carry any of those. So of course we can provide the food, but everything else, it's kind of like we're not meant for it. Even the steak knives are something that we have to typically go out of our way to get. So in a situation like this, it could actually work in everybody's favor, where we're able to do a unique take on prime rib, smoked prime rib. We can spend more time kind of figuring out how we want to do that, how we want to cost and price those things out. Bring a unique offering to the coaches world, where you guys now have the infrastructure, you have all the tools to pull it off and actually kind of present it the way that it's meant to be, rather than on our end, it sometimes comes in a white takeout box and it just never works the way that we intended to. So this is a good opportunity to maybe in that steak question say, maybe not right now, it's going to be a full-time menu item, but that's the advantage, is we'll be able to take some of that creativity from both sides of things and look at it and say, hey, maybe we could do a tri-tip sandwich. Maybe that would work, where on Saddleback's end, it's always hard to do that tri-tip because we don't have the volume at certain times and we need to blow through those tri-tips.
Absolutely.
We don't want them to sit there and dry out, but your guys' form, if we know it's a Friday night and you can pack that place with 100 covers, chances are we can get 40 or 50 orders through that, maybe in that 1 hour, so we can time a little bit better. So I hope for some things like that to work to everybody's advantage.
Absolutely. And in bringing that up, there's a lot of things that you go behind those swinging doors at coaches, and people don't know what's behind those walls. So we have a full kitchen, but we have limitations of what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So and you and I have talked about this a million times. There's things that I just can't put on the menu just because I just can't execute it well. But having the ability and the resources that you guys have, it's the same thing. As you talk about, you don't have the sit down interaction and experience, so that stuff doesn't translate well. We've got it, so I'm excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that I look at from a culinary and operator standpoint and vision, that I go, man, I've been super pumped about having that ability to be able to expand that.
Yeah. I not to bump on, but I love the combination of these two dishes in the same question. And
yes, Sue.
Sue, this is a fabulous question, and it's got a big smiley face on it, but stir fry and meatloaf, please.
Absolutely.
Because when I'm craving food, if it's one or the other, maybe, geez, it sounds like a stir fry kind, but there's always that meatloaf.
Which one am I gonna get? The stir fry or the meatloaf?
But where are those things that you've done in the past?
Well, not necessarily. We did the meatloaf, and that was back in the, as somebody else commented, the dark days of COVID years. We've done meatloaf in the past, and it's gone over really well. And it's just something, if you've followed coaches at all, you realize we do comfort food really well.
Mm-hmm.
The goulash we've run recently, and the different chilies and soups and pot pies and meatloaf. That's I take responsibility for that, and a lot of pride in it. It goes back to my foundation of cooking. But yeah, it's something that we do well. We haven't done the stir fry, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It's just something, again, some little bit of limitations on our equipment and our honestly, the ability of our staff to be able to execute it with everything else that we do. We've got a pretty large menu, so there's a fine line between to have variety for everybody, but also being able to execute it when you've got 200 people in your building.
Yeah,
it's a monster, and the poor people in the back that are back there sweating and running around and pulling their hair out. It's a stressful situation.
Well, I think that's a lot of things that people don't see when they think about restaurant, is that, when you're designing a menu, when you're looking at all the equipment that you have, all the food options that you currently have in house, what you're actually bringing in, how are you going to produce this multiple times over and over and over, and then not only that is how does it be produced while all these other items are coming in there.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more difficult than just saying, you guys need lasagna on your menu.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems that easy, like, okay, let's just make a sheet tray of lasagna, but really it's like, well, how are we gonna reheat these? How are we gonna store this? How are we gonna plate this? What's gonna happen when they ask for a substitution? Well, how do we address these things? There's a lot more complexity to those decisions than just like, sounds good. And I think that's like the thing that most restaurant people get is like, why don't you do it this way? And it's like, it's not as easy as just like, oh, of course, we should do it that way. I wish it was. Make my life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
I'm sure yours as well.
So, and Carl mentioned the cutty, and thank you, Carl, because that was...
Yeah, I was reading that way wrong.
It's happy and sad. So it's a funny story, but a sad story. When he took over coaches 6 years ago, we worked really hard at trying to enhance the menu, and we put out this great menu 3 days before we shut down for COVID. So it really never had a chance to get traction. We brought a bunch of new items into our kitchen to be able to produce these things, and the cutty was one of them. It was a great sausage. We actually sourced it out of Chicago. It's a fantastic rope fresh sausage that we used for it. Now it comes from the northern Michigan area in the copper mining days. Cutty grinder sausage with we put mushrooms on it and peppers and onions and like a pasta sauce and topped with cheese. Put it in our pizza oven on a grinder roll. It was fantastic, but unfortunately, with the reality of COVID, we had to really shrink down our menu. And coming out of that, with the cost, the skyrocketing costs and availability of items and everything that we've dealt with, that never kind of made it back on. But it was one of the items, and I'll be honest with you, Carl, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see it back on the menu again, or at least some form or fashion. So that was one that I was actually really proud of, and maybe we'll run it as a feature in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and I just went on that rant about how difficult it is to add menu items and all those things you have to think about. But at the same time, sales cures all. If you get volume and you get that following that wants to insist, as a restaurateur, we're always thinking about how do we make this work? How do we take it the next steps? And I think you would probably agree. Most times we overcomplicate it. We make it too difficult on ourselves and staffs, and to some degree we underperform. But the goal is on any of this conversation is always just to enhance that customer experience and how we can make that better, with whether it be our service, whether it be our offerings, whether it be our ambiance. So to our probably discredit, we might try too hard on some of those to have some reaches, and that's what puts us in the good old restaurant category.
Well, if there's something we can do, we can overthink. That is for sure, without a doubt.
Stephanie, that was not a question, that's just a comment. You're supposed to be bringing
we appreciate it,
here. Yeah.
The ego can take it.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're talking about that too, so something, I think even addressing when people have criticisms about, restaurants, and I'm talking any place you go to eat, I think what people have to realize, or hopefully they can realize, is that, restaurant owners and managers and the people that work in this business, especially behind those closed doors, I guarantee you we're not doing anything malicious. We didn't give up our time and our holidays and our weekends and our kids and events that we do to go out and try to give you guys a bad experience. That is absolutely not it. We're so passionate about what we do, and nobody's harder on us than we are on ourselves. So when we do drop the ball, or if something doesn't go right, man, I can tell you, like, I know you and you know me, like the part of the reason why I approached you on this is because we have that same vision.
Sure.
If something goes wrong, we don't just look at it and go, well, that was that. What did we do? We were busy. This happened. We look at it and say, how can we? Okay, that was bad. That sucked. But how can we fix it? Tomorrow, how can it get better? What do we change? What do we do? It's and that's hard. That's a hard thing to take, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, on our end, we're probably the most critical of ourselves. So, when we get that negative feedback, when we have a customer with a bad experience or something like that happens, we really, on the Saddleback side of things, every Monday we'll sit and we have a meeting and we bring up all the things that kind of went through the chamber. And we were just doing it today, actually. Just even when this was coming, it's like, I'm sure there's going to be some negativity, or some people are going to feel some sort of way about this whole thing. And we can't sit in the moment of not that we can't. We choose not to sit in the moment a lot of times of the 1,000 likes on the Facebook page, the positive comments. We're just waiting. It's like almost ingrained just for the one person that's just going to dunk right on us. And it's fine, but it's probably healthy to be able to take that step back and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. But we're so used to it, of having that rough Friday night, that rough Saturday night, and then you're sweating back there, everything happens, and then it happens. The burger gets sent back, it was cooked perfectly, and the person didn't like it, and you're just doing it's hard because it is personal preference. They might not like it, and just you didn't do anything wrong. Nobody here did anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. I think it was just they just chose that they didn't like it. They wanted to say something about it, but it affects everybody inside the organization. Then everybody's trying to make it better, or stressed out about it because they've got to redo it. And
absolutely. Well, perception is 100% reality.
Yes.
The customer's perception of what they've got is 100% reality. What I always just ask is, like, what, if it's bad, I get it. If you don't like it, just open up a dialogue with me. I can't tell you how many times we've gotten bad Google reviews or bad Facebook, or something happens, and I reach out to people and I'm like, hey, here's my email address. Please shoot me a message. I'd love to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I want to know more so I can fix it. There's countless times I've been away from the restaurant. I've seen a bad post come through, or somebody complains about something. I will literally go out of my way to drive back to the restaurant, to go on the line and literally look at the product and go, what's going on? I don't want another one of these to go out. You
Yeah.
know, like the pride we take in it is there's a lot to it.
We did just get one. Susan, do you know Susan?
Yep. Yeah. So Sue and her husband Walt are great customers and great supporters. Thank you. Nothing's changing with the staff. Nobody's going anywhere. You're right. We do have amazing staff, and it's a family. And we've worked really hard to make sure that everybody there is part of something that's special. And this group that we're joining with, they're all special as well. But no, our staff is staying the same. Nothing is changing. We actually told the staff, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think that's probably important. That 2 weeks ago, Jim held a meeting, and it was more. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, you definitely wanted to let everybody know kind of what was going on, and even the announcement today. That was really more. I was kind of saying, let's wait, let's put a pause on it, let's do it next week. But I mean, you gave me that call yesterday, and I was concerned. Leaving that call, I was like, I don't want to put them in a situation where they're having to answer questions that they don't know how to answer. So, we put everything together today. I obviously got this launch, but, Sue, I mean, you probably don't know me, but we're really looking at this in the best light for the employees, for you, the customer, and the employees. What was it, last week we did the holiday party?
Yeah.
So last week we kind of merged the groups together, and we did a joint holiday party at Lansing Shuffle, which I think went well. I felt like it went really well on our end, but it was really meant to kind of bring both teams together. Even on the Saddleback end, we have 4 restaurants, and still not all of our employees know everybody. It's a big establishment, so we fight with that in our own organization. But then to bring another organization into it, we really wanted to make it something special where people felt comfortable. I don't want to say getting on their skin, but just kind of opening up and saying, hey, we do this over here, or we do that over there, and nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you. So we've really gone, I think, pretty far as far as trying to make this as comfortable as possible. But there is no, the last thing I mean, it's going to go even worse that if somebody does do something wrong, we're going to want to hey, no, you stay on staff. We're not trying to change anything here.
Please don't leave us.
That's not the message we want, and we're trying to make that as transparent. And to be honest, I think it's better opportunity for everybody involved. On the Saddleback side, we do things our own way, but at times, it can be boring. You do the same thing over and over again. This will give maybe some of our kitchen staff or our back of the house staff some opportunity to try more of a working an actual line where there's cook to order food. Same thing on the other side. If you're serving waiting tables at coaches and you just want to get off your feet, I guess not off your feet, but sick of just kind of moving around and doing a lot of that multitasking. Maybe a day a week you work at a Slice or a Saddleback where a little bit more casual, a little bit more calming, just give you some peace of mind while you're still actually earning an income. So we've really thought a lot about how to make this experience best on both ends, and we really think it's just be a benefit for hopefully everybody.
I agree. It was I realized I felt guilty because we've been working on this for almost 6 months. I think it's been quite a while, and keeping it under the hat, and then once we got to the point where we could talk to the staff about it, it was important that they heard it from us and felt secure that nothing was going to upset their lives. That this was just another step forward, and everybody's comfortable with it.
So speaking of employees, I've got Steph on here who's made 2 comments, and we've talked about asking questions, and she still has not asked questions. So
good comments.
Steph, let's get our questions together here. Not comments, questions. And then who's in the Saddleback side? You say that, Bailey? That well said? God, well said. It is. Doing it in a formal class. No, I'm just picking on you, Steph. If you don't have a question, that's fine.
I got a question. Any potential bar food for Saddleback catering? Any coaches catering?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is that gonna grow?
Yeah.
Anything there?
Yeah. So if you didn't hear, Bailey was asking, what's the opportunity for coaches to be impactful on the catering side? So Saddleback catering is something that's grown for the last, I think probably year over year. We've had uptick in the growth of catering. To the point of where, you know, we've got a full-time catering director in here. 1/3 of our building over in Okemos is dedicated towards catering. We do a lot with it. But one of the things also that we talked about was, one, you've got that back room that I think you should kind of talk about as well, and just catering opportunities with coaches. You know, what does that look like? I mean, I know we haven't really drafted a menu out for something like that, but I know you've given that a lot of thought.
Yeah, so, you know, again, one of the limitations that we had is we wanted to do outside catering, we just didn't have the facility to be able to do that, or the means to be able to do it. So this is exciting to be able to offer that. Now, we do have our back area that, you know, goes out to the volleyball courts. You know, we struggled to find a name for it. It started out as a deck, open air, and then became a patio, and through COVID, we enclosed it and enlarged it, and it's a 4-season room. It's heated in the winter. But we can have standing, you know, kind of reception type. We can do about 70 people out there. It's got a full bar. Seated, we can do about 50. But a lot, you know, lots of open houses, graduation parties, retirement parties, things like that. You know, we do a lot of taco bars, pizza buffets, stuff, you know, baked potato bars, a little bit of plated meals, but basically anything that we do at Coaches and beyond. You know, we can handle that. So, you know, with our culinary experience, we're able to do pretty much anything. But
yeah, I'm excited to kind of go down that road to see, you know, with our space, you know, what kinds of things that we can do to enhance our catering menu. It's such a big part of our revenue stream that having a little bit more creative, be able to take some more chances on that side of it, I think altogether could be a wonderful thing. What else we got here?
So we had a question about the volleyball. If you wanna talk about that.
Yeah. So volleyball. If you're not familiar with volleyball, I'm not. No, but I'm learning a lot about it. And at Coaches, it seems like it's a huge part of their business.
Absolutely.
And it's 4 sand, is it 4 or 3? 3 sand volleyball courts that are on the side of the building that butt up to the restaurant. So the advantage is that everything's right there. So if you want to come inside, grab a drink, eat food, there's cover, and then there's also an outdoor seating area. So during the warmer months, leagues will be played out there, and you know, all kinds of business I think happens out there. So that's the really cool part, and that'll be launching probably here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, usually typically by the end of February we open up our registration for that.
Okay.
We run 2 seasons. We call it the spring season that goes, you know, usually the end of April, 1st of March, till about the 4th of July. Then we do our summer season, kicks up after the 4th and runs to the middle part of September.
So we've talked about a lot of improvements out there. You know, I think probably the simplest one is probably just better sand management and maybe redoing those nettings across the top of it.
For sure.
But I think from a player standpoint, if you play volleyball out there and you're chiming into this thing, if you're a member of a coaches league or somewhere else, is that we really want to make, this was something that Jim brought up to me real early, was the players want to see improvements. You know, they want to know that their player fees are going towards something that's benefiting them on their end, and that's what we're out to do. I think it's a growing side of that business of Coaches. That was another one of those really attractive points was the volleyball. We've talked about doing winter activities out there, whether that be curling. We've entertained the idea of like pond hockey, things like that. I think that's the interesting advantage with Saddleback is going to be, you know, I'm up for anything. You know, if it makes sense business wise, if it seems exciting and kind of cutting edge, let's explore it. Let's at least have the conversation. So there's no like line in the sand as far as options out there. That's a pun.
Yeah, nice
Like
job.
what I did there.
Nice job,
Yeah. No, I'm, you know, Becky, I'm excited to see this side of the side of the business. I've never actually been there when volleyball's gone on, so I want to see and you know, how much traffic comes through there.
Yeah.
And no, I mean I think the netting and the kind of just the working with the sand is going to be the big things that we focus on this year. But we've talked anything from extending the deck to possibly more courts. Those are kind of where we're stood, but I think most of those bigger projects will come in time. It won't be something maybe this year that you see.
Yeah. If anything, I think probably towards the end of the season, if there's going to be anything that's, major construction, we just don't have time to do anything between now and then. But at the end of the season, we'll kind of evaluate where we're at, and like always, we talk to our volleyball players. Becky, you were a major part of making that program what it is currently, and I know you've got a lot of passion for it and a lot of pride, and you should. But we got to talk to them and find out what's important to them and how is it moving forward and what's the newest thing. So we'll look at that at the end of the season and make those enhancements. But again, nets, sand management, some paint, some replacing some picnic tables,
Yeah,
things
if you
like
like
that.
to paint, you're out there.
Yeah, anybody if somebody likes to paint houses, come on out, man. We got ladders. I'll buy all the materials. Just knock yourself out.
I think Steph brought up an interesting one that there's is there still darts
Mhm.
and in pool. So
Yeah.
we've kind of as far as the outdoor stuff goes, we've kind of addressed that as far as volleyball being kind of the focus as far as the growth path out there during the summer. But I know you've had some ideas for that interior part and
Sure.
things that you've wanted to implement in the past and either haven't or maybe just timing was wrong.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about that space?
So as far as the inside the restaurant, or
Yeah.
so inside the restaurant, there's if anybody was at Coach's prior to us taking over, 6 years ago, there was four pool tables in there. There was dartboards. We had horseshoes out back, and really what it came down to was what's going to keep us alive.
It's seating space.
It's seating space. And people. I got a lot of flack when I took some pool tables out because people thought that I just didn't like pool. I didn't like pool players, and that wasn't the case. What it comes down to is square footage. Can I put tables in that spot? Pool tables generate $1 a game, $1.25. When we played a game this morning, a game. So that's great. Yeah, it brings people in, but at the same time, if I've got tables where I can put 4 people around or 6 or 8, and they're watching a game and eating some food and having some drinks. That just generates income that we had to have, and we still use it. Now, does that mean that we won't enhance that portion of it a little bit? No, absolutely not. What I love about you have the same thought process as me. Just because I did something 3 years ago doesn't mean it still works now. And this is a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
So as we look at it and go, hey, you know what? I think there's a spot. Maybe we put some nice dartboards in there with some nice dart alleys. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but those are things we've talked about.
Yeah, I value that space, and we've sat and had conversations about it, and until I recently brought my kids in there, it kind of brought me back. One of my first kind of restaurant jobs was at Trippers, and I think they called it a host. I'd take IDs, and I was also security, like my little 18-year-old ass out there. I'm scaring a lot of people. But the other thing that I had to do was go back, and this was when they had the game room in the back, and it was walking around, opening the stupid machines up, resetting them. I ran it basically the will of the children. So the kids would come in, the families would come in, they give the kids $20, they go back there, get tokens, and then once they started playing and it didn't go their way, they came and found me to fix all their problems, which was like the worst. That being said, take care of those people that count your tickets at the end of your experience. And really, they're working hard. Don't just get spider rings and Smarties. That's a real dick way to do that. You've got 7,433 tickets.
What can I get with this?
Can I get one spider ring? You have 7,432 tickets. It's just, it's unreal. When I had my kids in there at Coach's, you've got nice board games there ready to go. And what I found were my kids were instantly directed in that realm. They wanted to play some of those games. And although there's not really any crazy kid-friendly game, I don't want to say kid-friendly games, but there's not a Pac-Man or something like that. I can see where that's an ideal situation. Lugging around 3 kids all the time, they are excited, they want to do things, and I hate putting a phone in front of them. I think it's kind of it's the reality of today. They've been fed
Mhm.
drug of phone. But I don't necessarily want always there. It'd be nice if they were over there kind of conversing with other people. So
Mhm.
I think there's some optionality there.
Yeah.
As far as bringing some more life to that section of the restaurant. We've also looked at, was it Dartsy?
Yeah.
Was that the thing?
Yeah.
Kind of more of an interactive, kind of an upscale
Mhm.
dart experience.
Yep.
A little bit more technology involved, but it kind of gives you more of those games that you can play interactively.
Mhm.
I think that having that dart experience would be interesting. Would be interesting to try.
Yeah.
Being a dart home, I think Greater Lansing, at least in my opinion, has some really awesome bars that do well with darts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I personally wouldn't want much to do in that realm because I think they just do such a good job.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with pool.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had Rio Town Clubhouse open up
Absolutely.
in Rio Town.
Mhm.
We're excited about that, and
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think you're going to top a pool experience
No.
like that. So, no, I think that maybe there's some arcade options in there,
Mhm.
or trying to make it a little bit. I don't want to say kid friendly, but just an option if you want
Yeah,
to just send
yeah.
your kids over there for.
Absolutely.
second.
And we even tried, I moved this last year, 2 years ago, and I took all the board games that we had, and we brought a shelf in and put, a bunch of board games up on the shelf.
Yeah.
And some puzzles and things like. And it's amazing, and I love it. There's so many kids that are, they pop down and they run over to that shelf and they grab a game, a Jenga, a puzzle.
Yeah, I don't know if Jenga was the
whatever.
best idea.
Well, it's
That-
better than the giant Jenga.
That and the memory. I was
Yeah.
like, Jesus, kids, you're gonna get out the memory game here.
It's bad when your kids have
Yeah,
better
I've got a
memory than
burrito
we do.
coming, and
Yeah.
you got memory out on
Yeah,
the table.
yeah, well, just have another bourbon. It'll be all right.
Well, speaking of bourbon,
Yeah.
on to Carl's question. Any chance that you can up the bourbon selection?
Carl, I don't think you've been in recently. So why don't you come and visit us again, and we'll talk about bourbon. But yes, we have been doing that. But yeah, that was one of the things that I was actually excited about when we talked, was enhancing our bar program, and I think one of the things that's been a great movement in the Lansing area is, prior to 4 years ago, a good bar program was having a good craft beer selection.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple bourbons, and that was it. Now everywhere you go, people are crafting cocktails, and they've got, tequila selections and vodka selections, and good rums and bourbons and whiskeys, and I love that. And I think that's it's kind of goes hand in hand with our culinary scene getting better. Our bar programs are getting better. So you just can't take it for granted anymore. And that's one of the things that I feel like that we've taken for granted for probably the last 2 years, is we haven't done anything at Coach's to up our bar scene.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
bourbon.
not crazy. We're not going to be doing like crazy smoked Manhattans and old fat,
Those are
who knows, we
delicious.
might do one, but
Yeah.
and we're not going to go over the top, but having some good simple syrups that we make in house, they're easy to do, and bringing a little bit a better variety of selection that we've got.
So yeah, one of the things from my takeaway on those is like, if we put enough thought to something and we develop it and we're really stand behind it, I love how your staff is willing to push things. And if we can make those right combinations, whether it is a smoked Manhattan or something like that, and get a following for it, I'm totally open for that stuff.
Yeah.
The hard part on, like, at least, I'm on my tequila kick, right?
Oh, I know.
and
And I've been dry.
Yeah, so
yeah, Carl, it has been a dry January.
Yeah, so-
I think I'm going to break that this week.
So on my end, it's been like, I'll go to these restaurants and I'll look at their tequila selection. I'm like, oh man, I wish they had, something else.
Yeah.
But I'm just not a consumer enough of it to that, or I don't frequent that place enough to actually say, hey, would you bring a bottle in for me?
You can't demand it.
No.
Yeah.
But that being said,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you showed face enough and you were there and you were, I think most restaurants would go out of their way to bring in a few bottles for you because it's an investment for the restaurant too.
Absolutely.
So on like in the Carl sense, if there was like that secondary, I doubt it's like a Pappy thing, but like like an Eagle Rare, I think would be attainable. Maybe a Blanton's would be an attainable.
Yep.
Attainable spend where the price wasn't outrageous and still an eye-catching bottle. Things like that I think are reasonable if coaches can get their hands on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's a sourcing issue.
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
But I mean, as far as those kinds of options, I mean, I'd be excited to do something like a bourbon dinner or something like that.
Absolutely.
That would be really
Absolutely.
cool.
without a doubt. We had questions about a cornhole league. It's been something that we've been wanting to do for a while. In all honesty, excuse me, the volleyball has been huge for us, and we figured out a way to manage that. But without bringing on somebody at some point to say, hey, you're going to manage our activities.
Yeah.
Basically having an activity director. It takes away from my managers, or when I had managers, to be able to manage the food and the beverage and the people and take care of things, and then also manage another league. So yes, it's a great idea, and it's something that we have talked about and look forward to doing now that we've got a little bit more support in our infrastructure. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Well, and then on our end too, I mean, we have some people in place that I think will, carry on some of those obligations and be able to grow them. So I think that's another, advantage of, of the joint forces is that we do have more of a, I want to say, a back office part of our organization where, they're not necessarily customer facing, but they can organize, they can execute, they can communicate on the keys really well. So I hope that's an advantage as we push forward, as being able to fill some of those gaps. And
and where before it was, my manager's expediting on the line because it's busy, and she's also dealing with an issue on the floor and trying to run some food and make sure the schedule goes out, and we've ordered enough bourbon and everything else. Oh, and by the way, let me answer these questions about volleyball. Is this happening? Who's playing this? You carry a lot of hats in the restaurant industry, and that's one thing we are excited about is having that support with it.
Yeah.
Trivia night. We do trivia night already. Stephanie, we on Tuesday nights we have DJ trivia. Karaoke is something that.
What is that his name?
DJ trivia.
Is it a DJ and trivia?
That's the name of the company. DJ trivia.
Oh,
so they do it all over the city.
New shit.
Yep.
DJ trivia.
Yep. DJ trivia. They do it all over the city. They do leagues, and it kind of culminates whatever. Don't throw me off. Karaoke, man, you either love or you hate karaoke. If we could do it in the back room area, so maybe in the winter in that outside area, to where you come in with your kids to have dinner, and
You think I'm bringing my kids?
I would love that every karaoke singer has a beautiful voice. If you don't have to, but it's not always the case, and it's not always enjoyable for everybody in a mixed situation. So we've struggled with that in the past. I make light of it, but yeah, I know it's a popular thing. But again, there's a lot of places that do it really well. And I don't know that I don't. Crunchies is it. If you want to do late night, you can go to the Crystal and Hole on Saturday nights. But there's a few places that do it, and they do it well, and people love it and embrace it. There's just certain things that maybe is not a fit for us, but doesn't mean we won't try in the future.
Yeah, I think the best would be that we can create, I think, a 7-day experience that you don't have to throw, I don't want to say Hail Marys, but there doesn't have to be like an event or something going on all the time. It's that it's just a structurally sound restaurant where you get a pretty high volume most of the week, and we can just build upon that. I would assume some of those nights with the karaoke's and with the trivia, even those can be challenging, even if it's a good
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
It just, you never know kind of what you're going to get with those.
Without a doubt. Tuesday nights at Coaches are, when you've got volleyball going on. So, to give you an idea, we do, on Tuesday nights, it's 12 co-ed teams a night on 3 courts. And it's 6 people, not counting substitutes and spouses or significant others and family members and kids. And so at any given night, we have 150 to 200 people outside in that area. And then throw 8 or 9 trivia teams on top of that inside. It's a challenging night. That's as busy as you want to get for a restaurant. Don't get me wrong, I don't want people to stop. It's what we need, and we enjoy it. But that's for a Tuesday night in the summer. That's a rocking situation.
So Jimmy, as we kind of wrap up here, what first of all, if you're still out there,
if anybody else has anything to
pop in now. Now's the time to ask these things. But as we're kind of winding out of this thing, what I've got kind of my ask of like what I want. I'd love people that are interested in coaches or want to learn more about what they would do, but what do you think? What would you tell your customers or Saddleback customers of, what's something that can impactfully help or learn from in the next, month or so, maybe week, maybe today or whatever?
Well, we know that, you've got a huge base, and probably a lot of people that don't even know we exist. We've been there for 22 years, but still don't know that we're out there. And I get that we're in an outside neighborhood. So we should come into coaches, keep in mind what we are, currently. And we're expecting to probably see an influx of people. And if we don't go all the way up to expectation right now, just know that we're going to try harder and we're going to do better, and there's things coming, and one of the things that you said to me when we talked about this, I was like, man, I just want to make sure that your customers get a great experience when they come to see us for the first time. And you're like, well, look at it this way, like, if we're only going to get better and we're going to keep trying to raise the bar for ourselves, why not let them see where you're at and then come back again and again and again, and see how the bar's raised and see what we've done. And I agree with that. We've got a great staff. We have people that really genuinely care. Our staff cares about what happens there. They take it all very personally. So come try us, be patient, take it with a grain of salt. Let us know what you think menu wise. If you see something that you go, man, I think this would be great here. I think, you do this really well. Maybe we could try this, do this. Give us that feedback. It doesn't mean it's going to pop on the menu, or maybe not next week, but we want that feedback, because that's one of the challenging parts, is trying to put together something that people want.
Yeah, and if you did take away something from that, it would be that my takeaway from that was people that are entrenched in their organization are very critical of their organization. And I would have probably addressed that question the same way that you did, of kind of just like, hey, don't judge me on the first thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, as somebody who has been a customer and been in there, had food, had experience, watched games, played keto, sat, dined in, brought my family, and all different aspects of the dining experience, we would not be sitting here if it was a bad thing. So if I would have gone in there multiple times, and this is over years, this isn't like in the recent time, and it was just a poor experience, I would have just said no. We're not gonna. There's just too much room, because I'm looking at it the opposite way of like, there's so much there to be proud of. There's so much there to tip your cap at, and again, when we challenged that question earlier of like, it's really easy for us to go into the doom and gloom, and I think the opposite. I think the food's amazing. I think the service is amazing. I think the options to watch sports there, to celebrate with friends, to just interact, I think all of it's there, to play volleyball, it's all there. And although I am on your team of saying, let's improve, let's get better, I think that somebody that comes in tonight, was it Friday, is going to have a wonderful experience. And then if they don't, like any other place, let's just get back on our feet and move forward. But I look at that differently. I think you're doing a wonderful job over there. I think the staff's doing wonderful, and I think there's only good things. And that comes a lot from the comments today.
Sure. Everything
Everything was positive. So I think that the more people that can come in those doors over the next few weeks. So keep in mind, this transaction hasn't happened yet. So it's just in the phase of happening. So, from a proceed standpoint, from a support standpoint, Saddleback actually won't be getting anything until the deal's actually done. But it's not that we don't want people to come into coaches and save it up. I'd rather people go in there to experience it and watch as we evolve and be part of something special. Because I think in the Delhi Township area, there's nothing better. Like, I think that location is prime. I think that the surrounding areas are going to support and grow, and I think that there's only other areas that we can reach, and it's exciting. And I'm excited. I think I'm going to show up there tonight and walk behind you and answer any weird questions. Probably creep some people out, but I think it'll be a good experience, and I'm excited to see some hopefully new faces and some familiar faces.
And one of the things we never even addressed was the process. And you just mentioned that
It's a process.
I think where we're at in the process,
Oh,
You know,
okay.
that,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's not a done deal yet, and that,
Yeah.
you know, where, how this process has evolved and where it's at. So I guess, you know, that's my point.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess to just be transparent with that, basically all the paperwork of the agreement's been signed, everything like that's pushing forward.
mhm.
Where it stands is it's in the MLCC's hands of them approving that I'm fit to have a liquor license. Now, we currently have a liquor license here in Okemos, so I don't foresee there being any hiccups there, but you never know. So once that gets approved, the conditional license, then in theory we'll close on it, which I think could happen maybe in the middle of February.
Yeah, probably 2 to 3 weeks out.
Yeah, and then we're done. I think. Well, then it has to go through one more step, but for the most part, it's done. So that's when Saddleback would take over. You know, that's when you got to start paying the electric bills and things like that. So we've got a lot of work in the next few weeks. But what was actually happening was people were finding out. You know,
Yeah.
the MLCC is a public space, and when you apply for these things, it's transparent. So you can creep out that site all you want and figure out who's doing what. So when we were starting to find out that people were figuring this out, mainly on your end, there was just concerns of like, you know, our staff doesn't feel comfortable lying, but I know you guys want to keep it a secret. And that was, their concern became our concern.
Absolutely.
And that's where it was like, it's probably not in, I mean, selfishly, it's not in my best interest to announce this right now, but it is fair. It's a fair, if we are meaning that, if we are true behind the, you know, we want this to be a comfortable transition, we want everybody on our teams to feel comfortable, then we have to do right by them. And this,
Without a doubt.
and that was why we're announcing a little bit ahead of schedule, but of no concern by any means.
Yeah, no, not at all. And, you know, our number one concern is our staff, you know, our internal customer. And that was, you know, I've heard it over the last week or week and a half. And, you know, oh, so-and-so asked me, I was at the store and this happened, and customers came in, and I had, you know, one employee in particular yesterday, she said, I didn't know what to say. No, that's not good. You know, I don't want my staff to have to walk up to a table and feel uncomfortable. That's number one, no. So that's when you and I got on the phone yesterday afternoon, and, you know, we moved this forward pretty quick.
Yeah, and you know, when we don't take those things lightly, and then on the same time, we also don't take our social lightly either.
No.
So we wanted to make sure that we had a strong plan as far as our reach. Rachel Greco put out a great article through Lansing State Journal today, which we were very fortunate to have written and thankful for. And I mean, our social media marketing team on our end has been working on this since late last night. So these things just aren't just posts, you know. When we do an email campaign or we're out there doing something, normally these things are drawn up possibly days, if not weeks in advance, and you know, we strategically go after them. So you know, you guys are always so quick to say, you know, how well we do at certain things, but I mean, it goes without a lot of work put into it, and you know, we're fortunate to have the team on our end to execute some of these things. I don't think there are a ton of businesses our size out there that can do things like that. So, you know, we're thankful for that opportunity. I got one last question here about live music that Sue brought up live music. So coincidentally or not, since this announcement, I've had multiple bands and music people reach out to me.
Those entrepreneurs.
Not a bad thing. I don't know anything about the live music scene. I don't know anything about the licensing of that. I know you guys have done live music in the past and had some successes with it. I don't, probably just until further review type thing on the live music thing. And again, I mean, we're obviously asking for a lot of this feedback and opportunities and things we want to change or develop further or take on. But really, we're still at a getting to know each other phase. You know, we want to figure out if there's actual things inside the organization that are currently happening that can be improved without anybody seeing anything. And those are the things that I think Jim and I are most focused on right now. And we hope at some point down the road to be really comfortable with how the business is operating, and then be able to do some really fun and exciting things. But that, to me, that area and your core customer base is a wonderful spot to start, you know, as far as a growth thing. And our goal is to make Coach's Pub one of the premier restaurants in the greater Lansing area, in my opinion. And I think it's a great opportunity from a destination standpoint. If you're traveling into Holt for sports or something like that, or that side of town, whether, I know they're putting a lot of investment in the south side of Lansing there. If you're on that side of town, we want to provide a spot where you can come watch a game, grab a burger, enjoy some wings, that kind of thing. And I'm more and more confident as our conversations continue that this is attainable.
I agree.
Cool.
I agree.
All right, you got any closing words there, Jim?
Well, I want to thank the community of Holt and the neighborhood that surrounds us and the school district and everybody else. For the last 6 years, you guys have been just amazing with us, and the support you've shown us, and standing beside us and behind us has been unmatched, especially through COVID. And I want everybody to please trust that we're not changing your neighborhood place. It's still Coach's, it's still gonna be here. We're still your place for generations to come. And that's really what I wanted to do with this, was to make sure that Coach's was here for multiple generations going forward. And it's been humbling the last 6 years to see the support that we've gotten. And I'm not going anywhere. I don't know if we addressed that, in this conversation, but that was something I did get a lot of on the messages driving over here. You're going to be here, right? You're not going in. No, I'm not going anywhere, and the conversation spurred because of my respect for Matt and how closely we are in our management and our philosophy and the type of people that we are. And, I wouldn't do this with anybody else. So, Coach's isn't going to change. I'm not going anywhere. I just really feel like it's going to get better.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think this is a great opportunity for both of us.
Absolutely.
But we're always trying to improve the community through our experiences and through food and dining. And I think this is a wonderful place to do it at. I like Delhi Township as a Mason resident, so he's grown up in Mason. It's the closest establishment to my direct community, but I mean, we spend a lot of time and money in the township, and I think this is going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for chiming in here. Appreciate you kind of your loyalty as far as the viewership. I hope we didn't say anything offensive or it's going to come back and haunt us, but we're excited about this venture. All parties are, and we look forward